Welcome to another episode of Real Estate AI Flash, and I can't believe we're in 2025. And Happy New Year to all of our listeners. And today's episode is going to be a power-packed one because we have Cesar Rivera from Corcoran McInerney. I'm sure he'll correct me on the last name because or the company name. But so Cesar is a director of strategic growth, been with the company for 6 years. And I believe a big part of some of our listening audience would love to hear Cesar's take today is because we're going to focus on how do you grow your real estate teams, your brokerage with personalization and AI. And that's the topic of the day. We're going to dig in with Cesar. Cesar and I connected on a Facebook group, and we've been inseparable ever since. So welcome to the show, Cesar.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, looking forward to digging in. And you're obviously based in DC. I didn't mention that, but just for the listening audience, I know people can look you up online, and we'll include the link in the show notes for Cesar where you can kind of connect with him and follow his work. But I'd love for the listening audience to get to know Cesar, and so give us your backstory and bring us to today.
Sure. I mean, Cesar Rivera, originally from New York City, moved down to the DC metro area back in, say, 2014. My wife just got a great job opportunity that led me here. My background was not originally in real estate. It was always in sales. So in New York, I was in sales. I worked at this massive sports complex and sold memberships to individuals looking to have access to this massive complex. I called it a country club in the city for sports enthusiasts. So it was a really great opportunity to kind of like hone my sales skills. Ended up moving to, DC, as I mentioned, in 2014 and landed a role as a sales manager for a new home construction builder, which is where eventually I ended up in real estate. So with the new home construction sales role that I had, did that maybe for roughly around 5 years. So from 2014 to around 2018, worked in that industry. Days off were Tuesday and Wednesday, but, imagine working out of a model home. So for me, I always said I worked and I basically did an open house 5 days a week from 11 to 6 o'clock. So the company I worked for, they were really good in terms of their sales training. Your approach to asking questions to potential home buyers of the properties that we were going to be selling in that particular location. But during that time frame of 4 years, I probably sold 200 homes or more for the builder. But in the process, I probably spoke to, hundreds. I mean, we're talking 500-600 agents. And, during that time frame, I got to know some agents. I got to know some agents who did it really at a high level. And, just by kind of watching, the clients that they brought in and the way they went about doing their business, I felt like, it might be time for me to go on the other side. So when the opportunity presented itself, I probably spoke to 5 or 6 agents who I thought did it at a very high level and, try to get their perspective as to, what would be the right brokerage for me? Tell me a little bit about the brokerage that you're at. And, based on what I'm looking to get out of it, where do you think would be a good fit? Obviously, a lot of them try to get me to their brokerage, but after having these conversations and trying to figure out where I wanted to go, I landed at where I'm at now, which is now called Corcoran McInerney. So that's the way you pronounce it, McInerney.
There you go.
It takes a while to get it, but once you get it, you're there. But anyway, for me, one of the big areas that I wanted to have in terms of like the brokerage that I wanted to be part of is a place where, I wouldn't be a small fish in a big pond. I wanted the ability to have and leverage leadership, access to leadership to be able to help me grow my business going from a W-2 employee to a 1099 employee. So I got to be in a place where I got that hands-on learning experience to be able to grow my business and kind of, take me where I'm at today. But maybe a couple of years ago, I decided to take a little break from the real estate world and head into corporate sales. I was doing outsourced HR, which is a very interesting role. A lot of, reaching out to businesses, CFOs, CMOs, and, strategically having these conversations with these decision makers to try to convince them to purchase the software that, I was selling at the time. But that's where a couple years ago, maybe around 2022, I believe, is when I got introduced to ChatGPT. And that's where the aha moment came for me, where, if you got to think about this, I'm selling HR solutions to dental practices and home healthcare where I know nothing of that industry. And for me, I just decided, well, where can I get that information where I can, selectively figure out a way to have these conversations with these decision makers with an approach that might resonate with them. And that's where, ChatGPT just coming into play and me being able to reduce the time that I would go into trying to do this research. That's where the aha moment came for me, where I was able to kind of get that information relatively quickly and be able to speak on a high level with these decision makers and speak their language. And that's where, ChatGPT and leveraging AI was a big intro for me, and been leveraging ever since. So
yeah, no, I'm glad you wove into your aha moment, because it's been 2 years, right, with ChatGPT, and I feel like we've gone through a decade of normal technology with the way the speed of evolution of AI. And with all the changes, I mean, you make a very good point, because I think a lot of agents, whether you're working internet leads or even real estate team growth with other agents that you may not have connected with yet, I think AI has opened some doors about how do you personalize your interaction to take it to the next level. Can you do it without AI? Yes, but it takes you a ton of time, right?
It does.
Which none of us have. So let's dig into some specific strategies you're applying AI to personal touches and growth, and how, and kind of pique the curiosity of our listeners who want to grow their teams or grow their brokerages.
Right. Well, I mean, the thing when it comes to recruiting, I mean, this is twofold. We could go into the AI component, but then also, what it is that you have to do to be able to pique the interest of an individual who you may want to bring onto your brokerage. And I think you hit it on the head when it comes to personalization. We all have been there. If you're a licensed agent, you're probably getting an email. You're probably getting some sort of call. And a lot of times these calls are very generic, not speaking to you. I mean, as I'm in maybe the past 2 years prior, when I was essentially in another role in another industry, I was still getting calls from, brokerages saying, "Hey, Cesar, love the fact that you're really hitting your numbers." And I'm like, I haven't sold a home in 2 years. So like, the fact that, the personalized attention, I feel like a lot of, people in this space, whether you're a recruiter or an owner reaching out to the agent population, the fact that you're not really, or they're not doing something a little bit more personalized, does not allow for individuals to even be receptive to your outreach when you reach out to them. And I think a lot of times most people are just more comfortable making emails and sending text messages, but you have to get on the phone. And when you are on the phone with someone and a human being, you have to be able to be comfortable on the phone. Yeah. And you have to be able to speak their language. So maybe truly understanding, where they are in their business, their production numbers. I mean, you can pull all this information. So it takes a little bit of work. And if you're willing to put that work in and do the outreach and speak their language, or talk about something that maybe you've seen that resonates with that individual, it would allow them to maybe open up and be more receptive to that conversation that you're having. So, for example, let's just say I'm reaching out to an agent who, and I'll just throw a brokerage out there. Let's say an agent that's with Keller Williams. They might have been in the industry for let's say 3-4 years. They're producing anywhere from 2 million to, 5 million in volume on an annual basis. And I know with my brokerage, I could take that individual and take them from a $5 million, producing agent to maybe an 8. I want to say that. I want to be able to articulate that with that person on the phone. So the fact that I can say, hey, I noticed that you've been producing $3, $4, $5 million annually. Congratulations. You're doing more than most agents out there, where 50% of agents are not producing anything right now based on numbers and stuff like that. So being able to kind of state that fact, even though they may not in their own personal eyes feel like they're working on a high level, because they might be comparing themselves to somebody else. Besides the point, you're giving them some sort of acknowledgement and then letting them know, hey, not sure if you're open to this, but we've been able to successfully bring agents and grow their business from 5 to say 10 million or 4 to 8. Would you be open, or would you be against meeting up to have a conversation to see how we can better support you? If that's
you make a very good point on the first touch being personalized. But if you take a step back on some of the elements you talked about, is making sure you have good data, right?
Yeah.
So data is in production data. That's one data. The other thing, I think AI does a real good job of sifting through data,
Mm-hmm.
right? It doesn't know the context. It
Mm-hmm.
doesn't know the why yet,
Mm-hmm.
but you can provide the why. But it gets you faster to make the phone call
Mm-hmm.
if you have the data. So one data is production data you mentioned. The other one that I've recently, I'm working on a GPT. I'm sure we'll get to this, but is ideal client profile. If an agent is reaching out to customers,
Mm-hmm.
ideal agent profile that you want to attract to your team brokerage.
Mm-hmm.
All this can be programmed in to a custom GPT,
Yep.
and you can give them social handles of these agents. It can scour, hey, what do they like? Pets. All
Mm-hmm.
this goes to personalization,
Mm-hmm.
to your point. And then you can simply say, give me 5 every day to call, and it gives you the script with their data.
Mm-hmm.
Can you do it? I mean, it'd take you hours to put this stuff together,
It
right?
would. It would.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think one of the things that you hit on, my industry, by the way, is sales. It was not really real estate initially.
Yeah.
So for me, and I've always looked at individuals in the real estate market, and I felt like the messaging has been kind of canned. It's the same
Yeah.
approach all the time. So I had the opportunity when I was in the enterprise sales space of kind of going on LinkedIn and looking at all these, sales professionals and their trainings and all these various approaches, whether it be the types of emails you put out there and studies that were done to like, if you're sending an email with like less than 40 or 50 characters, even though it might be small, you have to be able to write something that's going to be able to, you see it, oh, that looks interesting, let me open it and kind of go from there. There's all these tricks in the enterprise sales space that you could then apply to the real estate world. So a good site I would always recommend is kind of pulling from other industries. So one site was 30 Minutes to President's Club. Great
Ah,
site. They give all these tools and techniques in terms of how to reach out to a CFO, CEO, or a decision maker in a major corporation. Now, those same approaches can be curtailed and made to be able to do similar types of calls. It wouldn't be the same. You just have to kind of change things up to then have those conversations with agents that you're trying to reach out. But going back to this, before we talked, and we talked about this, you helped me create my GPT, which has been very helpful for me because I've had all the data, I have all the information, I have all these scripts, but we could be talking about close to 50, 40 PDFs that I have.
yeah.
So, I have all this information, but now I have to personally, sift through it to figure out, hey, I'm calling this agent. They're producing X amount. They work for this brokerage. This might be the specific challenge that they have because they're, with this brokerage. What type of, message in terms of this, my call that I reach out to, what can I say that might bring up the percentage to have them be more receptive to the call? And this, again, you're doing a cold call. And I think a lot of the things, a lot of times that people, oh, I've made 3 or 4 or 5 calls and no one's picked up. Yeah, I mean, that's typically the case. But what can you say to bring the percentages up?
Yeah.
So that's why, for me, if I have the right data to use with this particular person, and in having that data in this personal GPT that I've created and something that can allow me to pull that information quickly to make that call, I have what I need to bring the levels or the percentages higher for me to be successful, to be able to leverage a meeting. And that's the end of the day. I want to be able to get on a Zoom call, maybe a cup of coffee with that individual,
Yeah.
something to allow me to have that conversation. And that's what AI has allowed me to really, really bring up the odds in my favor in that case.
So the data can be included. That you talked about 40 PDFs. Let's touch at a high level. What are some of the data points that
Mhm.
you could technically leverage that everybody has access to?
Mhm.
But now AI is giving you intelligence on demand in a much
Mhm.
faster way and getting
Mhm.
you to the finish line so you can make these calls and reach
Mhm.
outreaches.
Mhm.
So one is the production data you could get from the MLS. You could also upload your typical type of profile of agents you're looking for, right?
Right.
Because not every brand fits every agent, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
And then you can probably upload their social profiles if
Mhm.
you go through the kind of getting to know them personally.
Mhm.
Um, what are other things you've sort of tweaked in the data piece of it to build the personalization? Maybe some best practices on scripting.
Yeah.
You could put some of that stuff in there too,
Mhm.
right? And what else did you put in there, Cesar?
For me, understanding your value prop, but
Yeah.
also the value
Point.
prop. With your value prop, I always say this. I always say, so what?
Yeah.
Like, so is your message similar to everyone else? So now you're making that call and you're promising, oh, we have great tech tools, or we have,
That's
you know,
table stakes, right?
we have great leadership. Our brand, everybody knows us. Like a lot of brokerages kind of say the same thing. So if I'm reaching out and I say that, that may not stick with me.
Yeah.
But, going to different industries and kind of looking at what their value prop is and kind of not reinventing the wheel, but kind of take that one specific thing that you maybe can do well and putting that into a chat GPT and kind of like, hey, recreate this messaging that aligns with who I'm trying to attract to my brokerage and what, based on that agent profile, what resonates with them. How can I, create my value prop to align with that particular individual so that they may be open to meeting with me? So, for me, one of the big things for us is that, we have managing brokers in each of our offices that are there 9 to 5
Yeah.
minimum. Once they're there, it's over at 5 o'clock, they're probably still on the phone with some of our agents. So
Yeah.
I don't say 9 to 5. But anyway, maybe that might resonate. So if you're with brokerage, that's more of a self-service model.
Right.
And you've been able to produce a certain level of volume from your production. You're at 4, but you want to take it to another level. Are there any, what's the social proof at my brokerage that we've been able to do that?
Right.
What stories do you have? Quickly being able to pull stories. So if you have those stories in there, you can say, hey, ChatGPT, there's a particular agent that I want to, work with, and, they're in a certain mode production. If you fed the model that information of examples of agents, you can quickly pull that and use that as a reference to bring up in a conversation with an agent that you might be trying to attract to your brokerage that has a story that might resonate with them. Stories sell, by the way. So you have those stories that you can pull versus me just saying, hey, we do a great job of building agents and having growth. No, what story do you have to share to kind of, be able to say to, have that agent listen to you and maybe want to speak a little bit more with you.
Yeah. And this goes to the great points, by the way. This goes to the data that you input, right? And again, the GPTs are not set it and forget it. It's constant learning and evolution.
Mm-hmm.
So couple of data points that made me think of it as you were talking about it. One is there's not many brokers in the space that you're trying to recruit from, right? It's finite, but at least maybe the big ones are definitely finite. You could upload their value proposition as part of your value proposition. All of those are documents you're feeding AI, so it can learn more, become more intelligent, become your growth expert, your co-growth expert.
Mm-hmm.
The other one is upload testimonials of agents that have come from that brand you're trying to recruit to your company and why did they come, right? So I think the more you feed it, the better it's going to be with the output, and personalization is key, right? To get
Mm-hmm.
that first meeting and keep the
Mm-hmm.
meeting going.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like, to your point, most people are reaching out with table stake stuff.
Yeah.
And therefore your success rate. I'm curious, before we get to the last couple of questions I have from my guest, have you been measuring number of calls to appointments in any capacity, pre-AI and post-AI in any capapacity?
Not pre-AI, because within this role, I came into it using it.
You came into it with AI, yeah.
It's a good question. From I just know, in other industries where I worked and was doing the outreach without having it. It did take a lot more time to, pull that research. I was always big on, for example, leveraging, surveys from a reputable source. And that's the key. Like, when you're using a lot of these, ChatGPT or whatever you're going to use, making sure to have the right prompts to pull information from reputable sources. Because I would be one of those individuals, if I'm talking, in another industry where I'm talking to maybe a dental practice owner, I would specifically focus on pulling information from a survey that they may be a part of, an industry periodical that they follow or something like that. So always pulling from reputable sources that particular business owner would know and respect. So I would say in this case, for example, there was industries where in this industry, dental practices, I felt, what was it? The dental hygienist. There was like in 2022 or 2021, the turnover rate was close to 35%. So what are you doing to reduce your turnover? It would be some of those things, but I would reference that. So if I'm talking dental, practice owner, they was like, oh wow, this guy studies periodicals, he understands my industry. Well, not really. I just focused on the AI giving me those, sources that I would pull from, and not spend hours, searching internet for information that might not be accurate at all. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I think there's most people by now are using ChatGPT or some AI model for general intelligence.
Mm-hmm.
Like write me this, do this.
Mm-hmm.
What you've sort of moved towards is more personalized intelligence.
Mm-hmm.
The more data you can provide, context you can provide, examples you can provide, it is now a personalized growth expert
Mm-hmm.
for you. It's really designed for that. That's really the role of custom GPTs. And you can have a few custom GPTs that do your thing,
Yeah.
So
you've kind of, pushed me in that direction just from the conversation when we had. We were in that, meeting, and you mentioned it, and I was like, man, that's a light bulb for me. I need that. So, I created my own custom GPT that spoke specifically, and I've worked with a number of coaches in the recruiting space, and I love their ideas, but I had a lot of their information that they gave me, and I would focus on like one coach. So if this one coach that I worked with for like 6 months, and we meet twice a month, and at the end of each session, he would give me a PDF with the types of conversations to have with this said audience, right? I mean, we ended up at like maybe I have 24 pieces that I fed the GPT.
Yeah.
Now I'm asking it questions. It's almost like I have the coach with me.
100%.
You know what I
Great
mean?
examples. Yeah, for sure.
Maybe my coach won't like to hear that. But, the fact that he gave me this information, I fed it into the GPT. And when I asked it questions, almost like if I was to call him in real life, it's almost like I talked to them, and I would test it as a joke and for fun.
Yeah.
Hey, Jim, this is a scenario I have. Based on what you've told me in the past, how would you handle that? And if I give the GPT, I'm going to say eerily similar in terms of how the response is, because these are the responses that he gave me. You know what I mean? So
great use cases. And hopefully the audience listening have some light bulb moments of how you can personalize growing teams, brokerages, leveraging AI. So I'd love to ask my guests 2 questions as we kind of wind down our pod here. The first is, you deal with a lot of agents. You mentioned in your builder stuff, there's 600 agents, and obviously with the firm you're at, you talk to agents all day, whether in your firm or outside your firm. What is the one piece of advice you'd give for someone as an agent listening to you that would hold them in good stead growing their career and business?
So you're talking about like an agent who might be looking to grow a team or something like that?
Yeah, growing a team, yeah.
So, I've been an agent, so I know what it is to be in production, but like when it comes to building a team, I think one of the big things is also being open to letting go. I think a lot of times when you're an independent agent, you're in control of running your business. You want to run it a certain way. And I feel like the individuals who do not want to maybe give up control, limit themselves in terms of growth. So, you might have a certain way of doing things. But a lot of times if you're deciding to kind of control a lot of what you do and not be open to, delegating some of those tasks to other individuals so that it opens up more of your time to maybe prospect. If it is your focus on growing your business and growing your team, then that will be something that can really help you grow your business, if anything. And I would say even for myself, as someone who I'm still a licensed realtor, and I'm in the weeds and understand a lot of what's going on in the market. I haven't kind of left or anything like that. But, for the individuals who I've seen have been really successful, they've been really great at delegating a lot of tasks to other individuals so it can free up their time to grow their business.
Yeah, and that's great advice, not just for team leaders, but for anyone that has people that they work with. And I heard a statement not too long ago that stuck: if you don't delegate, you stagnate.
Correct.
But you got to find the right people to delegate it to, right culture on your team. All of those things apply. But once they're on your team, you got to learn how to let go and delegate. Great piece of advice. So final question for you, Cesar.
Right.
There's a lot of books. I don't know if you're a book reader or a podcast. It doesn't matter. Pick one, or if you want, you can have one of each. But we're probably influenced more by one or two things that we've sort of come across more than others. So what would your book or podcast recommendation be for our listening audience that they could benefit from?
So the book, Hyper Focus, Chris Bailey. Looks like this.
Nice. I've not heard Chris Bailey. I got to add that to my list. We'll include a link to the show notes for the book.
Yeah. Hyper Focus, How to Manage Your Attention in a World of Distractions.
Oof.
We have this thing right here. It takes away from our ability to focus. So there's some great tools and strategies in terms of
awesome.
In this world of constant distraction, and we all have our to-do lists or ideas and things we want to focus on, but our attention is being pulled all over the place. So great strategies in that book. And if you just pick up one thing, it could definitely help you, focus on whatever that task at hand is. And
that's such a good piece of advice in 2025 and going ahead, because I think attention is the new economy. Right. So, and how the ability to focus on the vital few versus the many, I think will get us much further. And that's a great book.
And actually having a physical book helps, because I was always
I get it. Yeah,
Kindle
for sure.
Person.
For me too. I mean, I'm reading this, Awaken Your Genius.
Yeah.
Your book. Yeah. Right. Recommended one of our podcasts. This has been awesome, Cesar. Thank you for taking the time to share insights on growth strategies to attract for team leaders and brokerages, and continued success in 2025 and beyond. And hopefully I'll catch you sometime in real life, in person, in 2025 somewhere, I'm sure.
Same here. Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.